probably the #1 thing that we see at track days is riders trying to be fast everywhere. And you see why that will kind of show why that sometimes has diminishing results, where what we really want to be quick at is these big corner exits. And how do we make this slowest point more efficient is we want to get to it as efficiently as we can. We have to respect it. The bike's got a slow turning point, and then we want to get away from that point as quick as we can. So we can even start by defining this a little bit. You could think of the slowest point in miles per hour, right? There's a point where the bike comes down 70, 60, 50, 42, 42, 43, 44, right at that 42 mile an hour, that bike is going to be going its slowest, which means it's also carving its tightest radius, right? Radius equals mile per hour. More it slows, the more the bike will change direction in a hurry. The slowest point ends under positive acceleration back off the corner. So, it's relatively apparent in the motor control side of it, but you can also think of it in lean angle, right? It's going to be the point of the bike's maximum lean angle. The duration, the time that lasts is also going to be variable. So that's always kind of, every corner is going to be a little bit different. And we'll draw a couple things out here and try to show, try to bring this to life a little bit more. One of the things that you will see is if you watch a MotoGP bike and a Moto3 bike, a MotoGP bike is going 220 mile an hour, something like that. It's going significantly quicker than a Moto3 bike that might only be doing maybe 140 mile an hour, somewhere in that range. And the slowest point on the slow bike, it's not as defined. It doesn't stick out quite as much, but when you watch these big fast MotoGP bikes, they'll come in, looks like they're parked, and then they will accelerate back off the corner. And the neat thing is, if you watch the point that both those bikes accelerate from, it's going to be within feet along the racetrack. And that's, track you've been to, you can put a mark like, hey, this is, you can almost think of it as the launching point back out of the corner. But the MotoGP bike's actually going to have to go to the brakes significantly earlier because it covers more time. But if you watch the mid-corner, where they release the brake lever is very similar spot around the whole racetrack, because it does not matter what bike you're on. What matters is when does the corner truly open up. And when we say get to the slowest point, respect it, get away from it, that's what they're trying to do, is they are trying to get their brake release closer to the point where the bike will accelerate back off the corner.
Bunch of different kinds of corners here. How does this work?
Yeah, so we'll take a look at it and we'll look at this first big 180-degree corner first. What we're always trying to think about is, where is the straightest line back out of the corner, right? And we could walk a racetrack, you could physically stand and see where the straight line is as it accelerates. But let's say I want to use all the racetrack coming back out. I maybe want to exit towards that line. If I make kind of my straightest shot in through here, anywhere on that green line would be kind of the straightest line back out of the corner. And if you think about a very fast motorcycle, riding a big R1 or something with a lot of horsepower, when you really accelerate, the front wheel is kind of floating off the ground. It's not, you lose a lot of the steering under really hard acceleration. So the faster the bike, the more straight that line has to look. So let's take a look at this. This rider comes in, they build some brake pressure, they're slowing. Let's say they're done with their brakes at that moment, right? So we kind of define that slowest point beginning from the moment you've released your brakes, right? So when we over slow a corner, you'd almost say that you had a much longer slow point. You spent more time at neutral throttle than maybe you would have liked. So this rider comes in, and after a neutral throttle, we'll go back to a maintenance throttle. So if I just kind of continue on this line right here, this rider's going to come in, they're going to hold their speed, which means their radius is staying the same. Let's say they come across that line of sight there. You could imagine if you were to follow that line back around, that's that rider's radius in the middle of the corner. So time at neutral throttle, radius is staying the same till the point where they see the exit, corner opens up, they get to start to accelerate. So when we really start thinking about what we are trying to accomplish is, we are going to prioritize our corner exit. We want to make the biggest drive out that we can. When we think about our corner entry, we are trying to really be a little bit more efficient and shorten up our slowest point as much as possible. So let's say this rider came in, they went to the brakes, they used 100% of the bike's potential stopping power, and they finished the brakes back here. We say we want to go the brakes lighter longer, meaning if this is where I got nervous, I want to go to the brakes. However, I can go to it at a lighter pressure. So let's say this rider comes in and they go to the brakes at 80% of the bike stopping power. They release the brake there, 70, 60, 50. And let's say they get their brake release coming somewhere down there. So you can imagine if they have twice the distance to brake, they could brake with essentially half the pressure, right? So they're carrying a higher average speed over a longer time. So let's say this rider comes in and comes into the corner, and you could think about really what we're doing. We said we want to make a straight line on the corner exit because we could accelerate maybe a little bit harder. Let's try to do the same thing on entry. So let's say this orange rider, they're going to come in. They're kind of making a straighter line towards the entry, and let's say this is where orange finally gets to release the brakes. So, you know, they're going to slow down, and you can imagine if they could run a straighter line on corner entry, they're going to have less lean angle points available, so they actually have more braking points available. So, you know, they're trying to straighten out their entry, straighten out the exit. We've all heard the idea of point and shoot, you know, slow in, fast out, all these kind of concepts. This is really what they're thinking about. So orange might come down, they're done with their brakes. Now orange goes to neutral throttle, and they can now get on that line maybe somewhere down and through there. And, you know, if I were to follow this rider's neutral throttle, their radius is actually quite a bit smaller than the blue's radius, right? And this is what we often see at track days is riders trying to be too quick mid-corner, right? So you could imagine if both riders went to the brakes at 100 mile an hour, let's say blue slows down to 60 miles an hour right here, right? So we'll say the brake releases, they're doing 60 mile an hour. Orange, let's say they're heading down in here, and let's say they go from 100, let's say they go 90, 80, 70, 60. Let's say by the time orange releases the brakes, let's say they're doing 52 mile an hour. So they actually are physically going slower in the middle of the corner, but you can see they're trying to maximize their corner entry, time on brakes. They're trying to maximize that corner exit. And if you look at who's going to get onto the throttle earlier, well, in this example, the orange rider would. They have a longer straightaway as they go to accelerate back out of the corner. Blue might be a little bit quicker in the middle of the turn, but they were done with their brakes all the way back here. So orange actually makes a little bit time there. Orange is actually able to accelerate earlier, so they're making time again on the exit. So even though blue rider might be a little quicker from here to here, the orange rider is going to be significantly quicker on the entry and the exit. And that's really what we try to prioritize in this sport. And what we think about with the slowest point is we want to get to it as quick as we can, respect it, and get away from it as quick as we can. So take this 90-degree corner, and let's say this rider comes in, they build some brake pressure. Let's say there's a 3, 2, 1 braking reference. Let's say this rider goes to the brakes wherever they were nervous, and this leads onto a big long straightaway. So they go, you know what? I want to get a really good exit. I'm going to start my acceleration zone as early as I can in the corner. So this rider goes, first 5%. They try to get the throttle back to wide open, and they go, whoa, I'm about to run off the edge of the racetrack. They get gathered back up. Now they get to accelerate and drive the bike back off the corner. So think about when you start to go to the throttle and you really accelerate off the corner, if you ever find that you have to shut the throttle or give throttle away on corner exit, your slowest point was too early in the corner. Your launching point, where you want to accelerate from, was a little bit too early. So that rider goes, okay, well, that scared me. I felt like I was going to run off the racetrack. They finally get the bike accelerating, but it's relatively late. So they go, okay, this next lap, I'm going to pick it up much later. So let's say this is the launching point. They come in, they slow it, and they go, okay, I'm going to focus on this big corner exit. And they go, first 5% back to wide open, and that happens, right? We say this is free speed. You got racetrack left on corner exit. Don't have to try any harder. Don't have to go to brakes any later. This rider's slowest point is too late. No matter how hard they accelerate, their radius will not open up fast enough to get them to the edge of the racetrack. And when you think about the line that you're trying to use around the race, the whole course or the circuit is, I want to run the maximum radius that I can within the track's limit per corner. So if I'm giving up all this racetrack on corner exit, I'd think, you know what, I'm actually wasting a little bit of time. If my bike doesn't get to the edge of the racetrack on exit, my slowest point is too late. And we kind of work on this launching point, and we start to go, okay, well, maybe I'll try to pick the throttle up here. Starting to get there, maybe I'll get it here, maybe I'll get it here, maybe I'll get it here. So I start to think, you know what, somewhere in this zone, and this might be an area on the racetrack, right? Somewhere in that blue circle is the slowest point. That is the direction change. That is the launching point where you could get to that first 5%, throttle back wide open, get all the way out to the edge of the racetrack. So we kind of give ourselves this kind of visual reference, and we'll think about this slowest point is, it is going to be a visual reference that you will have on the racetrack. And you kind of establish that through, well, where was I able to safely accelerate? Then we start to think about, you know what, it was somewhere by that crack in the pavement or that little area, you know, wherever it might be. We're trying to physically see it, and think about the stop sign in traffic. You're riding your motorcycle, driving your car. You get your eyes up to the stop sign. You don't just pick a brake pressure and hope you slow down enough. You get your eyes up to that stop sign and you modulate brake pressure so you can efficiently carry your brakes to the stop line. That is essentially what we're doing with the slow point. If we don't give ourselves a visual of where this is on the racetrack, how am I ever going to carry my brakes to that point? So a lot of this overslowing corner entry really stems from us not actually having a visual of, hey, where do I actually want to carry my brakes to in this corner? So if we look at this corner, let's say this rider goes into the brakes at the 3 board, they go to the brakes, their eyes are to that slowest point, they give up their brakes at the slowest point, and they go, okay, I'm relatively bored, so I'm going to go to the brakes same point, but maybe go lighter. I'm going to go to the brakes maybe earlier, or the same point, but lighter again. And eventually you'll get to a point where you feel a little bit bored on corner entry, so this rider goes, okay, you know what, I'm going to go to the brakes at the 2 board now. So they go to the brakes, they build all this brake pressure, they're still able to get to their slowest point, they feel bored, they go lighter, longer, less pressure, get there more efficiently, less pressure, and they go, okay, well, feeling comfortable. Now I'm going to go to the brakes at that 1 board. And then this happens. They go to the brakes, and they go to the brakes so late they can't get the bike slowed by the slowest point, and then this happens. Their bike isn't able to get to the apex or the point where you're closest to the inside of the curb because their entry speed is too high. Now this rider, by the time they get it gathered up, they may not pick the throttle up till somewhere, you know, back down here by the time they get bike pointed, and they actually get back to wide open throttle later. So what we start to think about is our corner entry really only serves to get the bike in a position to exit back out of the corner. So they go, you know what, I might have to back this back up and through here. I feel like at that 2 board, I can still get to where the bike slows, turns, and points. I can still get away from that point and have a pretty good lap time and be very, very repeatable with this.
Yeah.